Stepping Beyond Apparent Reality, A Guide for the Seeker by Lifechanyuan Across Cultures and Ages. Humanity has shared one persistent intuition, that ordinary human life is not the final destination of existence. In Chinese tradition, this aspiration is often described as becoming an immortal, not as fantasy, but as the transformation of life into a higher, freer state of being. The realms spoken of in ancient teachings, such as the 1,000-year realm, the 10,000-year realm, and the ultimate bliss realm, are not myths meant to entertain. They represent real levels of existence corresponding to different structures of consciousness. The true question is not whether such realms exist, but how a human being can consciously and clearly move beyond the human condition and enter them. This text explores one of the fundamental principles behind that transformation. 1. Apparent reality is a creation of consciousness. Everything we perceive through our senses is not ultimate reality, but a projection shaped by consciousness. The world we experience, including nature, society, and personal relationships, is not fixed or independent. It shifts as consciousness shifts. Human civilization itself is evidence of this. Cities, technology, transportation systems, and tools exist because human consciousness conceived them. Without the corresponding level of awareness, none of these realities would appear. Different forms of life inhabit different realities, not because the universe excludes them, but because their consciousness cannot access or generate those realities. In this sense, reality is not something imposed upon us. It is something we continuously create. 2. Life circumstances reflect inner structures. Relationships, social roles, wealth, poverty, success, and limitation are not random. They arise from patterns within consciousness. A person experiences only what their consciousness can imagine, accept, and sustain. What does not exist in consciousness cannot manifest in life. What is repeatedly held, desired, and structured internally eventually shapes external experience. This principle applies not only to personal life, but also to history, culture, and collective destiny. 3. Why most people cannot imagine transcendence. Although human beings have the potential to transcend the human state, most never consider the possibility. The reason is simple. The idea does not exist in their thinking. Just as an animal cannot imagine becoming human, a person confined to conventional thought cannot imagine a life beyond human limitations. Without imagination, there is no direction. Without direction, there is no transformation. 4. Consciousness precedes transformation. One of the essential principles of transcendence is this: the future must first be created within consciousness. To move beyond the human realm, one must first envision a higher mode of existence. When consciousness repeatedly aligns with a higher realm, the structure of life gradually reshapes itself accordingly. Transformation is not forced. It unfolds naturally when conditions mature. From the outside, such a transition may appear as death. From within, it is simply departure from one realm of existence into another. There are no shortcuts here. Blind belief, wishful thinking, or random attempts cannot bypass the precision of universal law. The principles governing transformation are exact, impartial, and uncompromising. Question 5. Why these teachings are necessary. The ideas presented here may sound mysterious, yet their essence is simple. Many truths are invisible, not because they are complex, but because conventional thinking cannot conceive them. At different times in history, discoveries such as gravity, relativity, or the unity of energy and matter were unimaginable. Likewise, the idea that consciousness shapes reality remains inaccessible until the mind steps beyond habitual boundaries. All teachings, scriptures, and philosophies serve only one purpose: guidance. Once understanding is reached, even the greatest texts lose their importance. Yet, without such guidance, understanding rarely arises. 6. Humanity's attachment to illusion. Most people live deeply attached to appearances. They struggle, compete, accumulate, and defend identities that vanish at death. Even while sensing the emptiness of this cycle, they continue, convincing themselves and others that it matters. Ancient sages observed this with clarity and sorrow. Their words were simple and practical, yet few were willing to understand or apply them. Number 7. What is worth thinking about it is often said that when humans think, the universe laughs. This is not because thinking is meaningless, but because most thought is directed toward trivial or illusory goals: status, possession, reputation, power. When thought turns instead toward the question of how life can extend beyond the human realm into higher existence, mockery disappears. At that moment, something awakens. A deeper understanding begins to form. And this leads to the final question: what have we truly understood?